Daniel Frost met Lena Castellanos at a warehouse art opening in Brooklyn on a Thursday night in October. He'd only gone because his sister wouldn't stop texting him about getting out of his apartment. And the moment he walked in, he regretted it. Too many people, too loud, too much performative appreciation for art that looked like someone had sneezed paint onto canvas. Then he saw her. She stood in front of a massive abstract piece, completely still while everyone else circulated, not looking at her phone, not sipping wine, just looking. Really looking at the art like it mattered. Daniel found himself walking over before he'd decided to. "What do you see?" She didn't startle, didn't turn. Grief. The artist lost someone. You can see it in the way the colors fracture at the edges, like they're trying to hold something together that's already gone. He looked at the painting again, saw what she meant. That's incredibly depressing. Most beautiful things are. She turned then, and Daniel felt that stupid cliché moment of time slowing down. Dark eyes that seemed to hold actual depth, a slight smile that suggested she knew something he didn't. "I'm Lena." "Daniel. And I have to be honest, I was about to leave before I saw you actually engaging with the art. Everyone else is just here for the free wine." "Oh, I'm also here for the free wine. I just multitask better." She grabbed 2 glasses from a passing server, handed him one. "So what brings a reluctant gallery goer to Brooklyn on a Thursday night?" "Persistent sister. You?" "I'm the artist's ex-girlfriend. Felt obligated to show up and pretend I'm happy for her success." Red flag number 1. She casually mentioned maintaining contact with an ex in a way that suggested unfinished business, but framed it as mature and secure. Daniel laughed. "That's either really healthy or really masochistic." "A little bit of both." She clinked her glass against his. "Want to get out of here? I know a bar that doesn't make you pretend to understand postmodern expressionism." They ended up at a dive bar in Williamsburg, the kind of place with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played songs from before 2000. Lena ordered whiskey neat. Daniel ordered the same, even though he preferred beer, and immediately hated himself for it. "So, what do you do when you're not being dragged to art openings?" Lena asked. "I'm a data analyst for a healthcare company. Incredibly boring." "I doubt that. People who think their jobs are boring are usually the most interesting ones doing them. Tell me something that surprised you recently at work." No one had ever asked him that. They usually zoned out the second he said data analyst. Daniel found himself telling her about the pattern he discovered in patient readmission rates, how it correlated with something no one had thought to track before. Lena listened like he was describing the plot of a thriller. "That's basically detective work. You're finding patterns in chaos." "I never thought of it that way." Most people don't see what they're actually doing. They just see the label. "I'm a photographer, weddings mostly because it pays, but what I actually do is capture the moment people stop performing and become real. Usually happens right after the ceremony when they think no one's watching anymore." Red flag number 2. She had a romanticized view of herself that positioned her as uniquely perceptive, seeing truths others missed. Daniel was hooked. They talked until last call. She told him about growing up in Miami with a Cuban mother who taught her that food was love and volume was communication. About dropping out of art school because she learned more on the streets than in classrooms. About the year she'd spent in Tokyo just photographing train stations. Why train stations? Because that's where people are always leaving or arriving. The most honest moments happen in transitions. No one maintains their mask when they're saying goodbye. It was the most pretentious thing anyone had ever said to him, and Daniel found it completely captivating. Red flag number 3. Her philosophical statements sounded profound, but were actually vague enough to apply to anything. A classic technique for appearing deep without substance. They exchanged numbers. She texted him before he even made it to the subway. "Tonight was unexpected. I like unexpected." Daniel stared at his phone, grinning like an idiot. His sister was going to be insufferable about being right. Their first actual date was 3 days later. Lena chose the place, a Cuban restaurant in Queens that she swore had the best ropa vieja outside of Miami. She showed up 20 minutes late. "Sorry," she said, sliding into the booth. "Photo shoot ran long. Bridezilla wouldn't let me leave until we got the perfect cake-cutting shot." She rolled her eyes. Like anyone's gonna look at that photo in 10 years. Red flag number 4. She was late without genuine apology, immediately shifting to a story that positioned her as the victim of someone else's unreasonableness. But she was so animated telling the story, so funny about the absurdity of wedding culture, that Daniel forgot to be annoyed. They ordered too much food. She told him to close his eyes and trust her to order for him in Spanish. The food was incredible. My mom would like you, Lena said halfway through the meal. Yeah? She hates people who push food around their plates. She paused. Actually, she'd probably try to feed you until you exploded. Fair warning, if you ever meet her. The casual mention of him meeting her mother 3 days in should have felt too fast. Instead, it felt like promise. Red flag number 5. She introduced future planning and family integration far too early, creating false intimacy and investment. After dinner, they walked through a park in Astoria. Lena took photos on her phone, not of the scenery, but of random people. An elderly couple on a bench, a kid learning to ride a bike, a woman reading alone under a streetlight. Don't you need permission for that? Daniel asked. Street photography doesn't require consent. It's public space, public art. Still feels kind of invasive. She looked at him with something like disappointment. Art requires a willingness to see people as they actually are, not as they want to be seen. There's a difference between invasion and observation. Red flag number 6. She dismissed his discomfort with her behavior by framing it as his failure to understand art, making him feel unsophisticated for having boundaries. Daniel let it go. Maybe he was being too uptight. Lena saw the world differently. That was part of what drew him to her. They started seeing each other 3-4 times a week. Lena's schedule was chaotic. Shoots on weekends, editing sessions that lasted until 3 a.m. She'd text him at midnight asking if he was awake, then show up at his apartment with Thai food and stories about the wedding she'd just covered. The groom cried during the vows, she'd say, scrolling through her camera. But not like happy crying, like I'm making a terrible mistake crying. Look at his face in the shot. She'd show him a photo of a man looking genuinely distressed. Did you tell anyone? Tell them what? That I think the groom is having second thoughts? It's not my job to interpret emotions. I just capture them. Daniel found himself adjusting his life around her availability. He'd stay up late even when he had early meetings because Lena was most alive after midnight. He'd cancel plans with friends when she suddenly had a free evening. His coworker noticed. "You look exhausted, man," Trevor said one Monday morning, late night. Lena and I were up talking until 4. Again? Dude, you need sleep to function. I'm functioning fine. Trevor gave him a look. Your last 2 reports had errors. That's not like you. Red flag number 8. His work performance was declining, but he rationalized it as a temporary adjustment period rather than a pattern of neglecting himself. Daniel brushed it off. This was just the intense early phase. It would balance out. A month in, Lena asked to see his apartment. Really see it. I want to photograph your space. The way you live tells me things you don't say out loud. He should have said no. His apartment was his private space, full of the accumulated markers of his life, photos from college, books he'd read and reread, the small garden he tended on his fire escape. But he said yes because saying no to Lena felt like rejecting the intimacy she was offering. She arrived with her professional camera, not her phone, spent 2 hours photographing everything: his bookshelf, his unmade bed, the contents of his refrigerator, the prescription bottles in his bathroom cabinet. This is weirdly invasive, Daniel said, watching her photograph his medicine cabinet. It's intimate. There's a difference. She didn't stop shooting. People's pharmaceutical choices tell you everything about them, what they're anxious about, what they can't sleep through, what pain they're managing. Engaging, enthusiastic, fast-paced, and clear audiobook narrator with rich storytelling tone. Red flag number 9. She violated his privacy under the guise of artistic intimacy, framing his discomfort as a failure to appreciate her vision. He never saw those photos. When he asked to, Lena said they weren't finished yet. She was building a series. It would make sense when it was complete. 2 months in, Daniel's sister Emily invited them both to dinner. Lena agreed enthusiastically, then showed up an hour late, barely apologetic. Sorry, I lost track of time editing. Emily was gracious, but Daniel could see the judgment in her eyes. After dinner, while Lena was in the bathroom, Emily leaned across the table. She's a lot. She's passionate. There's a difference. Daniel, she spent the entire dinner talking about her work and didn't ask me a single question about my life. That's not passionate. That's self-absorbed. Red flag number 10. She made no effort to connect with his family and showed no interest in people who mattered to him, yet he defended her instead of seeing the pattern. The bathroom door opened. Lena emerged smiling. Ready? In the car home, she was quiet. Finally, your sister doesn't like me. She barely knows you. I could feel it, the way she was looking at me, like I'm not good enough for you. Her voice cracked slightly. Maybe she's right. Lena, no! I'm a mess, Daniel. I know that. I keep weird hours. I'm obsessive about my work. I'm not good at performing for people's families. Your sister probably wants you with someone stable and normal. I don't want stable and normal. She looked at him. You mean that? I mean that. Red flag number 11. She used vulnerability as manipulation, creating a crisis where he had to choose between validating her and listening to his family's concerns. 3 months in, Lena's ex-girlfriend, the artist from the gallery, started commenting on her Instagram posts. Friendly comments. Inside jokes. Daniel felt something uncomfortable twist in his stomach. You still talk to her? We're friends. That's healthy, isn't it? Mature? I guess it just seems frequent. Lena's expression cooled. Are you telling me who I can be friends with? No, I'm just... Because that's controlling. My ex-boyfriend used to do that. Isolated me from everyone he felt threatened by. She paused. I told myself I'd never let someone do that to me again. Daniel felt like shit. I wasn't trying to control you. I'm sorry. Red flag number 12. She compared his reasonable concerns to abusive behavior, making him afraid to ever question her again. He stopped mentioning the ex-girlfriend, stopped looking at Lena's social media because it made him anxious, told himself this was him growing, being secure, trusting. 4 months in, Daniel's phone died while he was at work. He stopped by Lena's apartment, she'd given him a key, to grab her laptop to check an urgent email. His computer was at home, and his boss needed an immediate response. He found the laptop on her desk, opened it. It didn't require a password. Her desktop wallpaper was a photo grid. It took Daniel a moment to process what he was seeing. They were all photos of him, but not the casual, sweet photos couples take. These were surveillance shots. Him walking to his car, him at his desk at work photographed through the window, him sleeping in his bed taken from an angle that suggested Lena had been standing over him. And there were photos of his apartment taken before that day she asked permission, weeks before, like she'd been inside without him knowing. Daniel's hands started shaking. He clicked on a folder labeled D Project. Inside were hundreds more photos, screenshots of his text conversations with friends, photos of his calendar, pictures of documents on his desk at home, bank statements, medical records photographed from his medicine cabinet before that artistic shoot. But it was the subfolder labeled Subjects 1 to 7 that made his blood go cold. He opened it. 7 folders, each folder named with initials. Inside each folder, the exact same pattern: surveillance photos, personal documents, screenshots of private conversations, and in each folder, a final document titled Exit Notes. He opened one at random. KT. Subject lost utility after 4 months. Emotional attachment compromised observational objectivity. Pattern recognition, expresses love through acts of service. Weakness, need for external validation. Terminated relationship via manufactured conflict over boundary violation. Subject attempted contact for 6 weeks before cessation. Photos archived for future project work. He opened another. MR. Subject maintained for 7 months. Strong initial resistance made for compelling documentation of breakdown process. Terminated via strategic ghosting after securing apartment access and financial records. Subject showed signs of depressive episode following termination based on social media surveillance. Excellent documentation of trust erosion. His folder was labeled DF. The document inside was dated yesterday. Subject at 4-month mark, showing predicted isolation from support network. Work performance declining. Emotional dependence solidifying. Trust absolute. Ready for phase 3. Comprehensive privacy violation and documentation of psychological breakdown. Estimated 2 to 3 months until terminal documentation. Consider exhibition timeline for collected works. Red flag number 13. Every single intimate moment, every vulnerability, every private thing he'd shared had been weaponized and documented as part of an art project, treating human beings as experimental subjects. Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. Not his work phone, his personal phone, the one that was supposedly dead. He pulled it out. It was on, fully charged. A text from Lena. "You're at my apartment." Another text. "I can see you on my laptop camera." Another. "You weren't supposed to find that yet." Daniel looked at the laptop. The camera light wasn't on, but of course it wasn't. She'd covered the light. The camera was recording. His phone rang. Lena. He answered. "Daniel." Her voice was calm, almost amused. "You're early." "What the fuck is this?" "It's art. It's my work. It's the most important thing I've ever created. These are people. Real people. I'm a real person. You're all real. That's what makes it compelling. I'm documenting the architecture of modern intimacy, how trust is built, how it's exploited, how completely a person can be known without ever actually being seen." Red flag number 14. She felt no remorse for treating humans as experimental subjects, only annoyance at being discovered before completing her project. "You're fucking psychotic. I'm an artist, and you're my best work yet, Daniel. You want to know why? Because you're so convinced you're self-aware. You think you've done the work, read the books, been to therapy. You think you can spot red flags because you've learned the language of emotional intelligence. There were no red flags. There were 15. I counted them. I placed them deliberately. Every single one was a test to see if you'd notice, if you'd say something, if you'd walk away." Her voice held something like scientific curiosity. "You saw every single one. I could tell. But you explained them away, rationalized them, told yourself you were being understanding instead of just being blind." Daniel felt like he might throw up. The exhibition opens in 6 weeks. Intimacy Studies, a documentary series on consensual surveillance and the architecture of trust. That's not love. That's what love becomes when someone decides to actually look at it, when someone treats it like the social construct it is instead of the romantic fantasy we pretend it has to be. Red flag number 15. She'd turned his entire relationship into a calculated experiment, and every moment of real emotion he'd felt had been an observed reaction in her study of human vulnerability. "I could press charges. This is illegal." "Is it? You gave me your key, invited me into your space, shared your passwords, let me photograph your home. Nothing I did was without some form of consent, Daniel, technically." She paused. "And honestly, You won't press charges, because that would mean admitting to everyone you know that you fell for this, that you missed every warning sign, that Mr. Self-aware, Mr. I've done the work, Mr. Emotionally available, was marks for someone who saw him as a subject in a study. She was right. The humiliation of admitting what had happened felt worse than the violation itself. The exhibition will be anonymous. No names, just initials. Your friends won't know it's you unless you tell them. You can move on. Process this however you need to. Maybe even learn something about yourself. Her voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I did like you. More than the others. That's why I kept you for 4 months instead of 3. Daniel hung up, deleted her number, grabbed a USB drive from her desk, and copied every file he could find. Then he walked out of that apartment and didn't look back. 6 weeks later, Daniel's sister Emily sent him a link to an article in a Brooklyn art magazine. Intimacy Studies opens at Pioneer Gallery. Controversial artist documents modern love through covert photography. He didn't click the link, but he read Emily's text. Is this her? He typed and deleted 5 different responses. Finally settled on, yeah. Emily called immediately. Daniel, what the fuck? Did she? I don't want to talk about it. You need to talk to someone about it. I know what it is. I saw every red flag, Em. Every single one. She wasn't subtle. She showed me exactly who she was from the beginning, and I decided my judgment of her character was more important than the evidence in front of me. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I thought I had figured out how to avoid toxic people. I thought self-awareness was a shield, but it's not. It's just another thing someone can use against you. She knew I'd seen therapy, known the terminology, done the work, so she used that language to make me think I was being insecure or controlling every time I noticed something wrong. Red flag pattern revealed. The most dangerous manipulators aren't the obvious ones. They're the ones who speak the language of emotional health to make you doubt your instincts. Trevor from work called that night. Dude, you need to see something. If it's about the art show, I know. It's not about the show. It's about the reviews. People are calling her out, saying it's exploitative, questioning the ethics. One of the other guys from her project came forward. He's pressing charges for invasion of privacy. Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. Yeah? Yeah. The gallery pulled the show. She's threatening to sue them, but it's blowing up on social media. People are not on her side. Maybe Lena was wrong. Maybe Daniel could press charges. Maybe public shame was its own form of justice. Or maybe the real lesson was simpler. When someone shows you they see people as content, believe them. When someone treats strangers as subjects for observation, they'll treat you the same way eventually. When someone romanticizes violation as intimacy, they're telling you exactly what they plan to do. Daniel ignored 15 red flags because Lena made him feel special, made him feel seen. The cruelest part was that she had seen him. Every weakness, every insecurity, every pattern he'd worked years to understand about himself. She'd just seen him as material, not as a person. 3 months later, Daniel started dating again, cautiously, skeptically, with eyes wide open to the fact that self-awareness wasn't armor. The right person could still get through any defense, and the question wasn't whether you'd be vulnerable again, it was whether you'd be vulnerable with someone who treated your vulnerability as a gift instead of content. He never saw Lena again. But sometimes, walking through Brooklyn, he'd spot someone taking photos of strangers and feel his chest tighten. The fear that somewhere, someone was always watching, always documenting, always treating human connection as raw material for their own story. That was her final red flag, the one that came after everything else. She made him afraid to trust himself. And that, Daniel realized, was the whole point.